Welcome, everyone. So glad that you picked this session over all of the other sessions. I see a lot of familiar faces, and I also welcome everyone who's participating remotely to this session, and for those who are watching it after the fact recorded. Welcome, everyone. The topic today is one that I think will interest all of you, but honestly, I don't know how many folks who are listening in actually might already appreciate the nuance of difference between financial capability and terms you might be more familiar with, like financial literacy. So to get a sense before we go to our illustrious panel, I wanted to just ask the question, maybe you could just raise your hand, those who are in the room, who could on their own, if asked, if I called you up on stage, could you actually define the difference between financial capability and financial literacy? Raise your hand if you already know the answer. Excellent. Nobody raised their hand. Maybe out of fear that I would actually call you up, or maybe because you actually are eager to learn the differences. So we're going to first go to our first panelist. I'm going to ask each panelist to sort of mention who they are and what you do, but you see the names behind you ready. We're going to skip right to the content before the introductions. But Gus Schmedlen from Merlyn Mind, please help the audience out and tell us the difference between financial capability and financial literacy.
It'd be my pleasure, Asheesh. Thank you very much. Financial literacy is all about knowing, what are the opportunities out there in terms of, banking, in terms of, how things work, what compound interest is, et cetera. But it's really just a subset of a larger thing called financial capability. And financial capability is sort of the willingness to engage, the confidence in those skills, and also the systemic opportunity to be included in the overall financial picture. So financial literacy is really what you know. Financial capability is what you can do.
So that's nice and succinct definition. Don Sedlock from Worldwide, please tell us a little bit about how you actually can move learners to move from literacy to capability.
Excellent. Thank you, Asheesh. And kind of playing off what Gus said about what financial capability is, a key piece of this in the world of junior achievement when it comes to teaching financial capability to young people is to very much look past your old-fashioned textbooks approach and look at things like experiential learning. How can students learn by doing, which creates that self-efficacy and small successes that help put wind in the sails for each of the students that are learning these skill sets. So small wins to help advance self-confidence and self-efficacy in that. One of the key things that JA does to teach financial capability is we use role models as the volunteers that actually implement the program locally. So it's folks like HSBC employees that can come in and bring this curriculum to life in a way that really resonates with the young people that are receiving the curricula.
Dominique, Don already mentioned HSBC. You've had a storied career, not just at HSBC, but even before that, doing interesting things. You've lived the life of somebody who's built resilience and financial capability. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your personal story, but also how this ties to the work that you do.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much. Really glad to be here sharing the panel with Don and Gus.
Is your mic on, Dominique?
It is.
It's on? Can everyone hear Dominique? Yes? Excellent.
I come from Lebanon, Asheesh, and obviously the news about Lebanon and whatever is happening from a financial perspective is a disaster, and probably one that we haven't seen since World War I. Unconsciously, you live with resilience. Unconsciously, you live building these skills that you need in order to overcome all of these problems. And before I left completely Lebanon 16 years ago to move to the UAE, I was actually working with the UN on the community development post the war. And it's all about livelihood and what does this mean. And I'd like to start by really analyzing the definition of what is resilience. and I'll go to basic, Oxford kind of things, or Cambridge, whatever is good for anyone. Building resilience is actually building your capacity to mitigate risk, to absorb shocks, and to continue surviving in the best way post this. If you go to what is livelihood, is actually building your capacities, your assets, and your activities in a way that can protect you from any risk, any upcoming shocks that might happen, and making it sustainable livelihood is where you ensure that you overcome any risk and shock in the future. So if you look at the terminology between sustainable livelihood and resilience, they are the same. They are all connected to building your own capacity to mitigate the shocks and the risks that might occur during your lives, right? And this takes me to your question. What is better way of mitigating this than being financially capable? Because how you will mitigate it? How will you ensure that? And small example, how can you ensure you can survive if you lose your job? If you don't have the right financial capability. And I'm going to give a very, very tangible example, and I don't think we've all went out from the pandemic yet. But if we look at the pandemic, and if we look at what happened during this pandemic, and I'm going to focus on one aspect of our society, are the blue-collar workers across the GCC, but this means a lot of other people, and even across Egypt, Oman, and so on and so forth. These people worked for so many years, but they are already kind of illiterate because they come from a low background and low educational level, okay? Unfortunately, with the shock that happened with the pandemic and the lockdowns, these people have been either made redundant or on unpaid leave until we understand what's happening around us. And this, they weren't ready for that. They weren't ready mentally, they weren't ready physically. The worst part of it, they weren't ready financially, because what they do at the beginning of each month, they remit all their money back home with zero influence of what's happening, with no balance sheet understanding what they're doing. Where is your salary? These are minimal details that people should go through. And they were counting on governments, they were counting on donors to access basics. And by basics, I mean their meals on a daily basis, their basic hygiene on a daily basis. And this is not all right. So if we want to build a resilient society and a sustainable livelihood, I think financial capability building comes at the top of it all, because otherwise it's going to cost the world whatever the pandemic cost the world, and we're speaking about $311 trillion.
Well, Dominique, you put your finger on, I think, what's near to the hearts of many people who are listening, which is, how do we actually move from knowledge to behavior change? We heard Gus talk about the very raw definition of literacy versus capability. We heard Dawn explain self-efficacy is the self-belief that comes, which is a part of behavior change. And you mentioned how, at least for the pandemic, we realized that behavior change was needed because people had the knowledge to save, but they didn't actually do that in light of the shock. But we also know the future of work means that young people will have potentially up to 7 jobs, up to 7 different careers and up to 20 different jobs. So they're going to change so much and have to develop that ability to do behavior change. So please, I'd love to hear your perspective. how do young people actually have that agency? How do you actually teach young people to have agency?
Such a great question. Let me start by mentioning one thing that it is key to me, to my heart, to where I come from as well. Unfortunately, when I was growing up, the only topic that I didn't learn in school is how to manage my money. It's the only topic. Yet, everything you have to do with while growing is managing your money, your first job, and so on and so forth. So the way we do it in HSBC, obviously we are a bank. I think if we fail teaching people and businesses how to manage their own money, I think we fail our purpose of existence, right? And the more resilient community are, the more everyone is prospering around you, which makes a complete business sense. But part of what we do with our own communities is these partnerships that we live upon. And these partnership is really to create this collaboration, this mission, this message that we want, and one of the greatest that we have globally is with junior achievement, obviously. It's been globally 15 years, where I just heard that probably in the UK, this is 40 years of partnership. And create this bond in order to enter the youth at their heart, right? And this is where we go to school. We leverage on the expertise of junior achievement. Our partner on the ground is Injaz Al-Arab, obviously, because they are the chapter of JA for the Arab world. And bring the bank expertise, which our own employees, and go within schools to deliver the message, to bring it to life. And what does it mean to them, right? We started for 10 years delivering more than money. And it is more than money. It takes more than money to build the capacities, the literacy, the understanding of what does this mean? What does this mean to the youth? How does it impact them? Where do you go with it? What do you do with your first salary? Or probably becoming an entrepreneur is just even a more shocking, because we are set in our curriculums to graduate as job seekers. We're not set in our mindset to become job makers, and this is a huge shift. So with more than money for 10 years, we were there, just integrating them at the beginning of year, and if I'm not mistaken, was it year 7 that we start with? So really, when they start understanding the concept, how we play with this concept, how we play with money, what does it mean? And then obviously we thought that we needed to give this, with innovation coming up, to give it more of accessibility. And we've piloted, and I let Don speak about this more than me. We've piloted an amazing program that will be accessible, I hope, to everyone, which is building a financial capable generation, where I think with this innovative way of putting it in their own hands, because they are creating what does it mean to build a financial capable generation, and they are becoming very creative. And what we saw in the pilot was mesmerizing for me, is how much these young people are aware, how much they want to do, how much they want to change, and how much they want to take it in their own hands and actually shout about it. But I leave it probably to Don to speak more about this.
Well, you've teed up Don better than I could. Well done, Dominique. So Don, tell us about the partnership and where it's headed.
Absolutely, wonderful segue, thank you. So when HSBC and JA Worldwide came together to think about how we can make the concept and the theme of financial capability come to life for young people, it was difficult, because we were so used and so comfortable with the financial literacy space that looking at ways to build in self-efficacy and attitudes and how local environments influence some of those opportunities was a whole different thing for us to explore. So what we did was we had a number of discovery and ideation sessions where we talked about this theme openly and candidly and tried to explore from a global level what financial capability means. Ultimately, what we landed on in partnership with HSBC is the development of a program called JA Building a Financially Capable Generation Program. This program is designed to offer a 90-minute foundational session that's led by a business volunteer, preferably from the HSBC banking community. During that 90-minute session, there are all of the basics covered about your financial literacy concept, and then looking at the environment around you, wherever you may be, and the different things that influence that environment, and ways that you can start to build some self-confidence and self-belief and self-efficacy in taking advantage and leveraging some of those opportunities that are in your environment. So what we did is we created a supporting technology component in the form of an app that helps to bring this concept to life for young people. So we're using elements of gamification and simulated learning to create a game-based learning platform. It's essentially 240 minutes of curricula developed through an app that allows students to learn budgeting skills, test budgeting skills, earn income, save income, also spend income, and learn a little bit about debt and how to manage debt and the good uses of debt and some of the negative uses of debt. So hopefully at the end of this experience, they've gained some wins on the leaderboard, they've gotten some points and gained some of that personal sort of self-belief that they do have a seat at the financial capability table and that they are able to manage their money and take advantage of the different opportunities that are in their local environments to hopefully take their businesses to the next level or take their personal finances to the next level. So it's a really exciting opportunity. We are so pleased to announce that we confirmed and completed our initial pilot, reaching over 7,000 students with more than 300 HSBC volunteers in a pilot program that was evaluated and showed very strong gains in learning outcomes. So the future is very exciting for us in this program, and we look forward to sharing more as we proceed.
Well, I can see everyone in the audience thinking, games? Surely not. Gamification? Is that where education is headed? Gus, you're a technologist at heart. Please help the audience get over their skepticism about games and tell us a bit about this term you've coined, society-centric design.
Sure, those are two related questions. I'll try and answer them both quickly. So purposeful gaming is definitely an evidence-based approach to not only sort of engaging students and convincing them that either a supplemental or remedial activity is worthwhile doing, which they would enjoy because it's gaming, but also in terms of how much information and knowledge they retain and how much of that information and knowledge is actually actionable. It's one thing to describe how to balance a checkbook. It's another thing to go through a simulation of money that you've earned within the game so that you can apply that in your real life. The academic literature around purposeful gaming has been expanding quite rapidly, thanks to the likes of Eric Klopfer, Kylie Pepler, Kathy Hirsch-Pasek, et cetera. And I would point you to, for early elementary interventions, the Playful Learning Landscapes program funded by the William Penn Foundation and executed by the Brookings Center for Universal Education. But when I think about financial capability, and I think about how we're trying to reach students, how we're trying to reach youth, and where to reach youth, there's one place to reach youth these days, and that's mobile. And the combination of having an amazing partner in HSBC, the medium of mobile gaming equals relevance and efficacy for today's youth. There's no two ways about it. And speaking about society-centric design, your second question, it's really based, society-centric design, from my perspective, is really based in the theory of creating shared value. Mark Kramer, Michael Porter, Clayton Christensen, et cetera. And what that is that if you can simultaneously create a private good and a public good, you're actually creating a market that's going to be a great place to compete in the future. If you're a bank, and a great bank like HSBC, would you rather be serving a constituent group of your customers who are financially capable or not? The answer is you want as many people to be financially capable as possible. And by engaging with partners like JA and other JA Worldwide, INJAS, and other non-governmental organizations, what HSBC is doing is not only creating a wonderful brand opportunity, that's really short-term thinking, that's next quarter thinking, but also a much longer-term thinking. In the longer-term plan, the longer-term strategy here is to create markets that are much better to compete in, communities that your employees love living in, and an economy that's going in the right direction. So I think, in summary, this whole notion of society-centric design, that's what ESG is all about. That's what sustainability is all about. It's not just about climate. It's not just about getting a press release. It's about creating these markets and creating these communities, which are great places to live and great places to compete.
Well, you're speaking to many of the top leaders across JA and INJAS in the room, in addition to many other guests who are here today. My last question, before we turn to your questions and your insights, I'm going to ask the same question to all panelists, and it's the same question I ask of all of you. Now that you have a sense, hopefully, of the difference between literacy and capability, you may appreciate that JA is uniquely capable as a network to be able to bring this idea of knowledge and attitude change and behavior change in young people to as many kids as possible. So JA for many, many years has been all about financial literacy. And we've realized that much of what we've done in work readiness is about capability and attitude shift. How can we do the same in the financial realm? So how do we make this more of a movement? How do we actually take this to more youth around the world? What's the way in which not only we scale this, but we change the hearts and minds of all the other NGOs and all the other corporations that need to be part of this movement? All right, I'm going to ask you first, Dominique, because I know you're ready to say.
I just said it.
You just said it.
Before, at the beginning.
Okay.
I mean, listen, Asheesh, it's been a very long road, right? 15 years of partnership. 15 years are going every single term within schools. Every single term speaking with Ministry of Education, and I think Ghazar is here somewhere, knocking doors just to grant opportunity to our youth to listen to the expertise, to the reason why we want to build a financial, building a financial generation, right? Capable generation. And for me, it is a topic that needs, with the advocacy of the work that JA has been doing for so many years, is to get into the curriculum.
So in the curriculum, that's what you want.
This is the way. Yeah, I've learned 1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
But there's a purpose why I'm learning math. I'm not learning math just to know the 2. I'm learning math to know what's happening around me in the world, right? There is a purpose for every topic. And the purpose of learning financial capability, of learning the basic of it. I'm not saying we need to become, have a PhD in economics at the age of 10. I'm just saying knowing the basic. And the basic is as easy as it starts from the beginning when you get this 5 dirhams from your parent to go get your chewing gum. 5 dirhams won't do anything, but whatever. What does it mean and how to manage it? And how to write what it is, right? So for me, it starts with education. It starts with the education system. And it's all about collaboration. And it's all about all of us getting together.
Thank you. Don, you're next.
So I fully agree with everything you just said, Dominique. I think that resonates really well with the work that JA does throughout our network. Movements really require scale. And scale requires very deep relationships and passion and a spark and fire to really create that groundswell. And JA has always been very poised to create movements. We create movements all the time. As one of the world's largest educational distribution channels in the world, reaching 10 million students in 1 year and over 100 million living alumni, that is a hugely powerful, leverageable resource to help carry this financial capability mission forward. So I think we need to talk about that, and we need to use that and leverage that distribution channel to further inform and create energy around capability versus the literacy, because that's where the action is going to actually happen and where the change in behavior occurs. So I think we just talk about it and we leverage the resources that we've got.
All right, Gus, a last response, and I'm going to hopefully get some hands up and go to you in a second. Yes, go ahead, Gus.
I think the way that you start a movement and the way that you continue a movement and gain momentum is through success. And what I really like about the partnership with HSBC is the fact that you didn't test on 7 students. It was 7,000 in a beta test, which is almost unheard of. And it didn't take 2 weeks. It took 15 years. And what one of the things that I love about GA Worldwide, in addition to its monumental scale, serving over 10 million youth every year, is the fact that these are evidence-based programs, right? Evidence-based interventions. And they're really not only based on what the feedback is from the agile development process, but also grounded in academic literature about what students need to learn. And I would say to all of you from the private sector, be like HSBC, come and partner with GA Worldwide as a scale and implementation partner. And also, even if GA Worldwide is not your partner of choice, find a non-governmental organization with massive scale to deploy your programs. And when I think about what kind of businesses would be interested in workforce development, what kind of businesses would be interested in youth entrepreneurship, both financial literacy and financial capability, it's every business. It's not one business over another. It's not just banks. It's not just transportation or logistics. It's every single business. So I would encourage you, especially if you do not have a very large CSR organization or try and do a lot of these things on your own, find a non-governmental organization like GA Worldwide to partner with to achieve scale, but also to leverage the expertise and the 100+ years of experience of organizations like GA Worldwide. That's how you start a movement.
You've teed it up so well. We're on schedule, so we can take your questions. I know there's got to be some skeptics in the room here say, yeah, I've heard this all before, but how do we actually do it in my country? Or I've done something with this partner. Please share what you've done so others can learn from what you've achieved, specifically on this complex movement from literacy to behavior change and capability. Yes? You can take your mask off, and I don't believe there's a microphone, right? I don't believe there is one.
Oh, it looks like
we can repeat your question.
Yeah, we can repeat your question. Go for it.
All right. First of all, I did my doctoral research in lifelong learning.
Here's the mic.
Oh, we do it. Look at this. Magically. Excellent.
Yes, my name is Alejandro Lara. First of all, I did my doctoral research in lifelong learning, specifically targeting adult population. So the question goes there because most times investments are either at an early age or at elderly age. So investments, adult population, where are we at specifically? Thank you.
So Gus, you live the world of return on investment at different age groups. Please help us.
For sure. I would say, just to start out, that JA stands for Junior Achievement, and we're specifically and intentionally and deliberately targeting youth from our standpoint. However, I completely agree, especially given the statistic that Asheesh mentioned earlier of 7 careers and 20 different jobs over the lifespan. We have to retrain, we have to skill up, we have to reskill adult learners as well. I think that there are an increasing array of sort of weapons at our disposal in order to, as GSV calls them, weapons of mass instruction that we can use to deploy, consisting of massively open online courses, whether that's guided, whether that's self-paced. And I think the whole digital transformation of the adult learning sector is a great opportunity for us as a community to figure out the best ways to reskill workers. I would say that what's required is probably a research, some type of research collaboration between NGOs, academia, and the private sector in order to get that done. And what the first question we should ask ourselves are which groups are the most incented to improve the quality of the adult workforce, and then go to them for funding, go to them for resources, and go to them for support. But there are many digital tools that have not existed in the history of mankind that are available now that can address that problem.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one more
Yeah,
thing,
absolutely.
actually, because obviously from my title you could see that I take care of what we call future skills. And we are in an era of an upskilling revolution, because the way we do everything that we do, from education to our own work to any sector we've been in, is transforming. And it's transforming digitally mainly, but it's transforming as well with the gap, right? We are retiring at an elder age, and we have a new generation that is dynamic, innovative, bringing loads of skills within them. So what we're seeing at the moment, even in one working space, is what we're calling reverse mentoring. It's not only the top and the leaders that are at a certain age mentoring the younger generation, it's the reverse that is happening. And this is very well needed. And I think more than this, we go to behavior, we go to movement. It's up to each and every person as well to keep up with the game. Otherwise, if you do not self-develop and self-go, there's that much that someone can hold hands you if you work for a corporate, or even if you are an entrepreneur. We're on the treadmill from the skilling perspective. It's up to us where we want to stop it.
Just one other small piece of color I can share about a lot of the programming that we offer. There's a lot of encouraging of young people to talk about money with their parents. This is typically not a comfortable dialogue in a lot of places. And this program helps to create some ways where students can easily do that. And in that exchange, there are ways where you can start to kind of teach adults through their children with the curriculum that they're receiving. So there's some interesting dividend there.
Great point. Thank you for that ad. Yes, the young lady in white.
Thank you, Asheesh. Razan Bashiti from Injaz UAE. So I just wanted to say a little bit about the experience and the relationship that we've got with HSBC at the UAE level. We've delivered more than 5 different programs, and the most unique ones were those that were delivered for elementary students, early years. We're talking about programs that were delivered for kids that were grade 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we saw the demand coming from the schools. We saw the demand coming from the academic institutions, because they are not delivering this skill, and it's a skill not to be ignored. And here maybe I'd like to add something as a mother, not as an Injaz JA person, because I've had one of my kids attend the sessions, and honestly, you see the impact. You see the teaching, you see the learning that's happening inside these classrooms. A classroom is planned to be 1.5 hours, and these kids, they are very curious. They don't stop asking questions, and the session is extended for almost 2 hours, and the volunteers are patiently explaining and delivering these skills and knowledge for students and youth, because they believe in it and they are committed towards sharing this knowledge and experience as a young age. So yes, as a JA person and as a mother, honestly, financial literacy is key, and it's not an area that is fully covered within the academic institutions, I would say, in the region. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Razan?
Yes, to Emmanuel.
Thank you. I'm Emmanuel from JA Nigeria. It's interesting what HSBC is doing. And sitting here, I'm asking, how can we, Africa has a very large youth population. So I'm wondering, what's HSBC's plan for Africa? Maybe I'm directing this question to Dominique precisely. How can Africa benefit, JA Nigeria, JA Africa, benefit from this process? Because just like she shared, it's been very impactful, and I think it's something that I would want to benefit from. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmanuel. I'm going to be very honest, right? Because our approach to partnership has key criteria. So we invest exclusively in the communities where we operate. And accordingly, wherever you have an HSBC presence, you have access to the partnership that we actually extend. I know it's critical, but on the same time, it makes sense. It makes sense to us because everything that we do is in collaboration with our own employee. So you will never see HSBC giving money and walking away. And don't just mention it. We brainstorm. We are, in the sustainability team, we are 100 across the globe out of 200,000 employees. And we're all subject matter expert in the field that we work in. So we work very closely, hands in hands with our partners to build what is required, right? Because it's very easy to give a donation, take some picture, clap our hands, but the era of CSR, and because the understanding of CSR usually is this donation and then probably become more of a marketing campaign for some of us. But for us, it has never been like this. For us, it has always been corporate social responsibility. Every corporate have to enhance, to give back to the community where they operate, because at the end of the day, they are surviving from their communities. So it is a mandate and a responsibility for each one of us to give. So extending to Africa, it unfortunately has to be probably with someone else, specifically in Nigeria, because we do not have a presence in Nigeria. However, we do have a presence in Algeria, and we do a phenomenal job together. We have a presence in Egypt, and we do a phenomenal job as well together, along with JA and in Ghazar.
Don's waiting to jump in here.
So, Emmanuel, one of the beautiful things about the JA network is that when JA Worldwide partners with an organization like HSBC, the program that we're developing, the technological supplement, will become available to the entire JA network when we launch it to the public in 2022. And it will be available at no cost. So that's a way that we can help move programming like this into areas where there maybe isn't a direct connection to HSBC as the sponsor and their volunteers, but you could leverage local corporate volunteers to implement components of the program. And so we're looking to share more information on that as programming evolves and as we move forward. But no, we haven't forgot about you or neglected to include other regions. That's a key part of the work that we do at the global level. Great question.
Well, thank you for asking that brave question. We have a hand in the back, yes?
Hi, my name is El Anoud. I'm from the Crown Prince Court of Abu Dhabi. I have two questions, actually. One of them is if you can elaborate more on the parenting aspects, because we invest a lot in youth, as it was mentioned, but how can parents be ready to these kind of questions? Is there a parent engagement element in that financial program? And the second thing is that what kind of policies that would support these kind of programs in the community in order to have better understanding and financial capability? Thank you.
Wonderful. Parents and government policies. Who wants to jump in?
I can take the policy if
Yeah, do policy.
Don
That's
wants
perfect.
wants to do parents.
Sure.
After you.
Okay, so like I said earlier, with parents, so much of what we do is in the schools at the school level, and we hope that a lot of that content makes its way home for further conversation with parents. We've found that in certain places, parents are actually learning quite a bit about financial capability and financial literacy. Simple things like budgeting, income and expenses, and surplus can be taught in a very easy and unobtrusive way by a young person just sharing some of the things that they learned in the school during the school day with their parents. And then we have
And I would argue that it should be in every primary and secondary curriculum out there, right? And I think there are some. There is a lot of evidence that shows that financial capability equals this generation of both the private and the public good at the same time. The problem is that financial capability is often seen as supplemental and remedial. It can't be seen that way anymore. And I think again, governments aren't the fastest movers out there, especially when it comes to the debate around curriculum and what ought to be taught and how it ought to be taught. But I don't think this is something that any economy can ignore anymore. I also would show or just point to the example of OECD and how they're kind of nudging all of their curricula towards more active learning, skills-based, what can you do, not what you know, what facts can you memorize, but what can you actually do. And I think there's a growing body of literature around the fact that this is a more effective way to teach. So test and measure, we know that it's going to take a long time, so supplemental remedial is not bad for now, but eventually financial capability has to make its way into the core curriculum. Full stop.
And I would encourage you as well to talk to the young women in white, because we are actually quite involved in advocating and helping, having the dialogue with policymakers. We wrote a paper with Brookings, which was presented at G20 to advance the dialogue about school systems changing, so we can be a partner in that dialogue.